wondering if you can comment on the public opinion survey and how opinions seem to have changed in the negative.
Sure, there's a couple things here. One is you have to reflect what the public is saying. On the other hand, you also have to think about the context in which the public is saying that. Certainly that survey was done at a time where all the headlines were all only about one thing. And as I've been saying for some time to all my colleagues, if you keep telling people how bad things are over and over again, eventually they start to believe you. What we have to remember is these numbers are still extraordinarily high. We have 70+% of people saying Calgary is a great place to make a living. A great place to make a life. And in fact, since that survey was taken, a lot of indicators have shifted. So our June jobs report was very strong. We're finally below the provincial average in unemployment, trending towards the national average. We're seeing big investment in the downtown core and in the rest of the city. So things are starting to look a little bit better. That said, the city also has to respond to the very real concerns that folks have. And that is precisely what we're doing right now in looking at budget cuts mid-year and looking at how we can ensure that small business in particular is protected from some of these things. So I think we're doing the responsible thing in responding to this. The only other thing that I'll note is we're talking about service reviews today. There was only one service in the entire city where fewer than 2/3 of people said spend the same or more. And that's bikeways, on which we spend very little anyway. So it's not very helpful for us in thinking about what we need to cut, because essentially people are saying, please don't cut anything that's important to me. Oui. C'est important pour nous de comprendre ce que les gens pensent, mais aussi c'est important de comprendre notre responsabilité. Parce que si on dit toujours que les choses sont mal ici, les gens commencent à croire ça. Et ça, c'est ce qui se passe ici. Je crois que le Conseil faisait des choses très responsables en écoutant toutes les choses que les gens disent.
Can we talk about those 6 services that we saw published today?
Sure.
What are people to make of that? For individuals who say rely on the low-income transit pass? I know that you said there's some nuance to the fact that was.
Yeah, I want to highlight that one in particular, because the question that administration is proposing is not should we have the low-income transit pass. Of course we should have the low-income transit pass. What administration is suggesting is that given that the provincial government's funding was a pilot project and it expires in 2019, what are our options for funding that pass? So that particular one doesn't really fit with the other ones, where the other ones are asking the question, should we be in this? Can we cut costs in it? That particular one, if it's passed today, is more about what are the funding models for this going forward. The funny thing about that list of 6 services is a bunch of that stuff is happening anyway, and I think that's where council is having a bit of challenge, because they're saying, are we doing new things, or are we enumerating those services that we're already looking at?
So why are those 6 there? Why did they pick others that they think it's something to?
Fundamentally, these first 6 are a bit of a pilot project. Let's see how the process works. I think that's why they chose ones where there's already a bunch of research done. But the other thing is straight up timing. Council has been so all over the map since passing the budget in November on what they want for the 2020 budget. And there's only a few months left. November, it's a beautiful summer day today, but November is actually just around the corner. And so fundamentally, there's only so much you can do before 2020. Let's remember that normally we pass a 4-year budget, we make small changes in the next year, and then in the next year, the middle, is when we really look at stuff. And council has been directing, do some stuff in the middle, do some stuff at the beginning. So I really hope today they actually clarify their direction. And I think this is the problem. It's our own council that has been running around without real clarity in what they actually want. And that's what's led to all this confusion.
Reviewing these services, what kind of see it could bring in lowering tax rates? Do you envision any big savings
Out of these 6? No,
Oh,
not of
sorry, I guess there's 245. Can you see big savings, or obviously
My own opinion on that is we've been doing world-class zero-based processes for the last 6 years. That has contributed to over $600 million in savings. Cities around the world and academics are following what we did as the right example. So I think we've already done all that. To adding another process on top of it, sure, it can be helpful because it helps us get more granular. Is it going to have huge savings? I don't think so. When you look at those 240 odd sub-services, and if citizens were to read that document, I doubt that any citizen would come up with more than 5 or 6 things where they go, hey, why do you do that? You know, I was surprised today to hear one of my council colleagues say, why do we do cemeteries? Well, who the heck else is going to do cemeteries? Are you aware of a private cemetery operator that does really well anywhere? And by the way, people keep dying, so you actually have to have them.
How do you justify the amount of time and money spent to do these reviews and sub-reviews and whatnot to save money? It seems kind of like a lot. Isn't there a simpler process to not spend so much money?
It's an excellent question, and so that's really what council has to try and figure out, which is, do they want to go with an ad hoc process where someone will go, we should look at the gravel pit and throw that over, and then suddenly we have to create a process to figure out whether we should look at the gravel pit and what questions we need to ask, or if there should be a more formalized process where the gravel pit just gets looked at in the course of time. Ultimately, you don't do this unless you're saving money, and certainly with the zero-based reviews, we've seen a gigantic return on the investment. They cost money to do, but we save a lot in terms of what they come up with. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it.
But these 6 you're looking at, you don't expect to see many savings from these.
Now, these are pretty small, and to be fair, it's because they're pilot projects, because we have to figure out how to do this, right? When we started with the zero-based reviews, we started with the fleet department, relatively small department we could get our hands around. And here, there are some good philosophical questions here around golf and around sailing, for example. The dollar amounts are relatively small.
Are jobs on the line in a sense? I mean,
Of course.
in programs, but
Of course they are.
in fact, if they're not able to come up with a simpler way to save money, I mean, you saw with the Olympic process, everyone put a lot of money through and for nothing. So
Yeah.
how are you going to make these big decisions?
Well, I wouldn't say that was for nothing. We did a lot of good analysis that we're now using to figure out how to continue to invest in our legacy facilities. But the point is, of course, jobs are on the line. Anyone who says, we're looking at services, we're looking at management, of course, jobs are on the line. There are people who deliver those services every single day, and that's what council needs to be very clear about.
Getting back to the survey, I'm just wondering, if it's to be believed, the public mood is souring. So, and this is sort of bled through a number of different ways. And so, what if any responsibility do you or City Hall accept for that change in the public mood?
Oh, well, listen, we didn't need a survey to tell us the public mood is souring. You just need to talk to people in the community to know that. And as I said before, when my colleagues go on and on and on about how bad things are here, never mind that we live in one of the best places on earth, of course that's going to sour public opinion. And that is the bed they made.
So do you think that it's perception then, that it's not reality?
Absolutely. Certainly we have to respond to what people are saying. That's really important because perception is reality, because we're asking people, what do you think? But at the same time, let's remember the C.D. Howe Institute says we have the lowest cost of doing business, including taxes, of any major city in North America. Let's remember that our residential taxes are the lowest. Let's remember that we still have, over 80% satisfaction with almost every single city service. These are important things to keep in context as well.
Is there a dollar figure attached to what the potential savings might be out of the review, out of these 6 services?
No, not yet.
Can we talk about comments made by the provincial assistant minister on health about potentially defunding supervised consumption sites?
Yeah, that is not what I heard him say at all. In fact, I believe he said on Twitter today that you have to have the whole continuum. I actually agree with him. I've said for a long time that you have to keep people alive and help them get better. I don't think there's been a focus only on supervised consumption sites, but I think that it is important for us to look at the whole continuum of recovery, of treatment, also of prevention, also of enforcement. All of these things need to work together, and nothing I've heard the Associate Minister say is actually different from that. And I don't think anybody disagrees that harm reduction, while a necessary part of the solution, is not the solution. And also it has to be done in a way that is sensitive to communities. And I think that these are things that council has been very responsive to as well.
Later
Let's
this
go
month.
Chief Rochelle last week saying Centino will use every tool available to them to stop SR1 spring break. Your reaction?
I do regret that, but I think it's very clear that this is not on their land, that consent is not required. I think the courts have been very clear on that. And we require upstream flood mitigation. We've done all the work, and SR1, the Springbank Dam, is the best option. In fact, it's the only option on the table right now.
Will you talk to him about that? Because he's saying consent is required, even though it's not there.
I recognize he's saying that. I have a different point of view, and I think he well knows my point of view on this, and I well know his. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.